21 till the hour time with Senator Chris Dodd, who's on Capitol Hill, and I'm out here at the Imus Cattle Ranch for Kids with Cancer, talking about this, digressing here to this BP oil spill disaster. One of my ideas, Senator, is to plug that hole up with the bonus money that we're paying these Wall Street guys.
Well, you'd certainly be able to plug it up pretty well if you did. This is beyond even my imagination what's going on. I watch it every day and listen to the various reports on how they're going to do this. What sort of stunned me is, I don't know if this story I saw yesterday, that in the midst of all of this, there's various licenses and permits and waivers that are continuing to be extended. How many of these wells, how many of these rigs out there don't have the kind of protections that would have stopped this gushing to occur down there? I'm just sort of stunned that we're just overwhelmed by this. This is beyond a disaster of an oil spill. It's Bob Hebert, I think, wrote a piece in the New York Times that said this is really just a failure of a system to accommodate this kind of a disaster. So I'm literally overwhelmed by it, as most Americans are, and find it stunning. The economies of Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, possibly Texas, the coastline, are going to be devastated by this for years to come.
Well, it's specifically a failure leadership of the president, Obama, and the administration. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, they come into office a year ago with all of this, and so after the last 8 years of a regulatory environment where it's drill, drill, drill. I think you were quoting drill, drill, drill a few months ago, weren't you, with Sarah Palin, the two of you? Drill, drill.
No, I wasn't saying it. Don't try to lump me with Sarah Palin, and don't use that lame excuse with me about the Bush administration. What, have you lost your mind?
Yeah.
I mean,
no, not at all.
The president's been in office for a year and a half, and they've been dragging their feet, and even people like James Carville said that his behavior's been at the very best lackadaisical and naive, and you're still going to try to blame Bush?
Now you calm down. Now calm down.
Okay.
You're out there in the ranch.
I did get my hair. My hair's on fire, isn't it?
Your hair's on fire out there in the ranch. I'll tell you. I wouldn't want to be a cowhand there today. I'll tell you.
No, but come on, you got to do better than that, Senator.
Well, why? I mean, I think, look, it's new, and obviously this goes on over a long period of time. To lay this at Obama's doorstep in light of years and years of regulatory permissiveness when it comes to these kind of operations occurring didn't occur in the last year and a half. I mean, you know that as well as I do. You can't lay this all at Obama's doorstep.
Well, I'm
any
laying
more
this,
than I can say.
No, I'm laying the response I'm laying the blame for the response to this BP oil disaster at the feet of the present administration. He's in office. He's the president. Who's responsible?
Well, all right, that's certainly trying to do so, but I've yet to hear anybody come up with the answer for this thing. What do you do about it? Obviously, they never should have been given the permission to have a rig down there without the kind of a cap or whatever that falls that it closes off these lines when a disaster like this occurs. Now, that goes back years. That rig wasn't built in the last year and a half. That rig was built years ago. Who gave them the permission to put that kind of a mile under the water and then thousands of feet beyond that and allow them to do that without having any emergency protection should there be a disaster? That occurred, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Well, I understand that, but when the president took office, he knew, particularly when he authorized this new offshore drilling off the coast of Virginia, where the hell it is, he knew that all of these permits and all of these stipulations were in place. He could have changed all that, couldn't he?
Well, he could, but let me tell you the big answer. And your friend of mine, John Kerry, Joe Lieberman, and Lindsey Graham are going to try, I think, in the next couple of weeks to bring up this energy bill. And let me tell you, John Kerry's done an incredible job on this, along with Joe Lieberman. They've got major industry to support this, to get off our dependence on these carbon-producing fuels, and particularly oil, and that has done so much damage, potentially moving into other directions in the long term. Not only is good for the environment, avoids the kind of disasters we've seen, but also it's great for national security. So the best answer may be that this reminds us that we need to shift gears in terms of what we rely on for our energy resources.
It is 16 till the hour. Well, it's pretty good. It's 16 till the hour. We're talking with Senator Chris Dodd, who has demonstrated this morning that the Obama administration must have naked pictures of him or something. I mean, who the hell knows? So we got.
Well, I'm looking for a job.
Well, that explains it. How about we make you oil commissioner?
I'm going to do a radio show. I'm going to come on radio with you. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, bring it on. So,
all right.
How about the skunk running for your seat in Connecticut, Bloomington? What do you make of that?
No, listen, I've known the guy 40 years, and Look, anybody in politics who hasn't, overstated their credentials from time to time, that would be the rarity in my view. And he apologized for it. What more can you do? He's qualified beyond. He'd be a great candidate in any state. Here's a guy, 20 years Attorney General, been the U.S. Attorney in the state, served in the legislature. He's highly competent, highly qualified, and I think will win that race hands down. People in Connecticut know the guy. He's been everywhere, worked with everybody for the last 20 years. He's going to do very, very well.
Just for our entertainment, I'm supporting the wrestling lady.
Well, I don't blame you. You probably like the wrestlers, right?
No. Oh, no, I don't think you want to go there, do you? Senator Chris Dodd, you have one far more serious. Now, you have a lot of constituents who died at 9/11. There's been some opposition to a mosque being built at Ground Zero. Is that something we should be concerned about or not?
Well, no. Look, I mean, my view, we got to deal with this. I'll never forget. I think I told you the story, Don, when Grace was born. You mentioned Grace was, of course, born, as you'll recall, 2 days after 9/11, 9/13.
Yes.
Right. You could view out, look at the room that she was born in, and see the Pentagon still burning. As long as I live, I'll never forget that right after she was born, she was taken down to the nursery where you bathe them and weigh them and do all the statistics. There was 2 women, 2 doctors taking care of her, and they had slight accents on them. And I asked them where they were from, and they wouldn't tell me. And I sort of persisted a little bit. They finally had said they were from Pakistan and Afghanistan, these 2 doctors, U.S. citizens. I thought to myself, what an irony in many ways, but not a bad lesson. Here's the moment of the arrival of my firstborn child. I could look out the window and see the Pentagon burning because people from Pakistan and Afghanistan, in that part of the world, had done great damage to us. And yet here were 2 women from the same countries. They were sitting holding and caring for my newborn with great care and affection. And it's sort of a reminder that we've got to be careful about judgments like this. I'm not in the business of deciding what should be or not should be at Ground Zero. But if the implications are that because it's a mosque and because it's Muslims, that somehow we ought to indict an entire religion or entire people, I find that highly offensive.
I agree. So, actually, these people were from Saudi Arabia. All these people that flew this airplane and everything whole up there. Well, thanks for being a good sport. And I'm sorry you're cranky about this article. I mean, other than people signing your guest book, which people are going to do that all the time. You ought to read my mail. So, what are you going to do?
I really don't know yet, Don. Honestly, in fact, you'll get a kick. The 5-year-old Christina, the other day, I said, what do you think I ought to do? She said, let's open a sweet shop. You can't retire from that, she said, So I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I won't make any decisions until the end of the year. And I'm going to take a little time. I'm really going to take some time. I've had wonderful conversations with former senators like Sam Nunn and George Mitchell and Chuck Hagel. And to a person, all of them have said, take a month or 2 and just take a breath. And so the one thing I'm going to do for certain is take a couple of months and just calm down and sort of go through the readjustment of leaving a place I love. I love the work here. I love my colleagues. They're terrific people. And I've enjoyed this 30 years here more than you can imagine. But it's time to move on. Time for me to leave. Politics were rough. But also you need to have new people come in. It's time for a new generation of people to come to the Senate. And so I'm very thankful to the people in my state. They've been more than generous over the years to send me back year after year to the Senate. So I'm very grateful to the folks in Connecticut.
In spite of all your imperfections and that you've been wrong about, in spite of that you've been wrong about nearly everything, you've always got a favorite of mine, and we've loved having you on the program. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thanks, Don, very much. Best to everybody.
Senator Chris Dodd.